Good morning to you. At this hour on the business desk, analysts are warning that mounting economic and political challenges may set the tone for the upcoming 2023 budget speech. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will deliver the national budget this afternoon, with the biggest ongoing risk to the economy being load shedding. Other priority matters to be addressed include the funding of social grant relief, fostering economic growth to create jobs, and public spending. Lead economist at KPMG Frank Blackmore speaks to us now to expand on this. Thank you so much for your time once again, Frank. I think the starting point would be what really stands high on the agenda as a part of the challenges economically that South Africa is facing that need to be addressed in this budget.
Good morning. I think we go back to the SONA, or take our lead from the SONA, and there the emphasis was definitely on infrastructure spend, primarily Eskom. In fact, most people thought it could be a single issue SONA with just how we're going to solve the energy problem. Without energy, a lot of other things fall over, including, health, education, transport, obviously business, small business, etc. So if you focus on energy, then a lot of things start lining up again, although there's a desperate need for a lot of funding in all areas, including those traditional services, as well as supporting business, the social wage. So there are a lot of areas that have need, but the priority must be at this point on solving the energy crisis.
Of course, on the latter being the energy crisis, to what extent then is it expected that the minister will go into finer detail of how the state is going to absorb Eskom's debt and seek investors in this regard? Because in the medium-term budget policy statement, we really did not get a full picture of how the state intends on doing this.
Sure. So we might not have the precise plan, but the important thing in the budget is to see whether money has been allocated for these things. Over the last few years, the budget includes about 90 billion, 90, for capital goods, which is the construction and maintenance of, buildings, infrastructure, etc. And that's woefully too low for what the country needs at this point. We know that the President mentioned a figure for the just transition of about 1.5 trillion that they have available to be spent over 5 years. In addition, he has his investment drive sort of fund as well in order to invest in infrastructure. And so if you take that type of money over 5 years, you should expect a massive increase in capital expenditure in the budget, and that's what, one of the areas I'll be looking for. The project-specific details will probably not be included in the budget, being that it is a financial report and not an operations or implementation report. But the fact that there would be money allocated to these capital goods or, the infrastructure in itself would tell us that there are projects that have applied for this funding and have been funded in this budget, and I think that's important.
Having said that, where exactly is South Africa's fiscus, the money in the kitty, going to come from? And I ask this directing it towards tax revenue.
Sure. So I think that, as usual, most of the taxes will have been provided by, personal income taxes and indirect or VAT. There will be contributions from corporate taxes. Some would have still been quite profitable, given that especially the mining sector, after the commodities, sort of the surge in those prices over the COVID period. But what is sure is that over the next few years, given the low growth, again, going back to the lack of energy, is that a lot of these type of profits are going to disappear, and it's going to be more and more difficult for SARS to get the equal amount of revenue growth to what we need on the expenditure side in order to grow. And we've seen in the last few years, we've had a windfall from a lot of the mining stocks, given the commodity prices that have received a boom over the COVID period, and the fact that we weren't importing as much gave us, a current account surplus. And that has really helped us over the last few years, and that won't be available going ahead the next 2 or 3 years. In fact, there'll be very low revenue growth if we don't get this economy going.
Frank, on the side of South Africa's debt, what exactly should we anticipate to hear this time around?
Well, I think the big sort of debt story will be how national government will take over some of Eskom's debt and what the size of it will be. The information that we received was that between 1/3 and 2/3 of Eskom debt would move over to national government, and that would give Eskom the sort of fiscal room to breathe, given that, Andre de Ruyter has told the public that Eskom is a profitable concern if you don't take into account the debt repayments. Of course, debt repayments is massive already for our government. It's the fastest growing element of the budget and the third largest at this point. So it just follows education and the social wage. The next biggest item is debt repayments at just over 300 billion, which is a huge amount of money that could be used on all the other government services. So one does have to be cognizant about how large we allow that debt to grow. I think we probably will extend a little bit more debt, given that other avenues of collecting revenue are probably not available.
Another matter of concern is the public sector wage bill, and the public servants this time around in 2023 not pleased with National Treasury and the state overall for reneging on the agreements that they had made prior when it comes to pay increases. But it does seem that the situation is worsening with strike threats at the current juncture. How is the minister expected to address that particular issue?
Look, I think as in 2023, the sort of proposed increases for public sector is one thing, but getting them through the fiscus is another, and it will take sort of joint effort, given the state that the economy is in at this point, and specifically the revenue services. And remember, I think we all look at public sector increases because they are, per definition public, but everybody out there will be looking at their increases as well. And a lot of those are going to be a lot lower than inflation at this point in time, just given the fact that a lot of businesses are battling. And in a way, why should the public sector be any different?
Thank you as always for your time. That's where we leave it with the lead economist at KPMG, Frank Blackmore, as we build up to the budget speech of 2023 later.